Have you ever wondered why a 3-year-old can learn more in a single year than most adults learn in an entire decade? How is that even possible? Well, it turns out there's a paradox. The more you think you know, the less you're actually able to learn. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful Japanese philosophy that can unlock your ability to learn just about anything at any age. Let's get into it. So here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the adult learning problem. Why so many of us get stuck. Then we'll follow the story of a guy who's in a desperate spot and see how an ancient secret completely transformed him. We'll look at how he put that philosophy into actual practice, see the transformation, and then we'll connect it all to the modern science that actually proves this ancient wisdom really works. Okay, so let's start with the big question. What happens to us? Why does it feel like our amazing capacity for learning just sort of fades away as we get older? And let me ask you this directly. Really think about it. When did you decide you were too old for something, or that you were just not good at learning a new skill? This one question right here gets right to the heart of the problem. It all comes down to this core conflict. A child's mind, it's like a sponge. It's totally open, curious, and there's no ego involved. Mistakes aren't failures, they're just data. But the adult mind, it's often this fortress built out of certainties, designed to protect our ego from the shame of not knowing something. And that fortress is exactly what stops our growth cold. So let's see how this actually plays out in real life. Let's talk about a guy named Alexander. He's a 32-year-old mechanic who felt completely, utterly trapped by those very same certainties we just talked about. This was the soundtrack playing in his head 24/7. This constant barrage of self-doubt telling him his time for growth was long gone. And look, these weren't just his own ideas. These were beliefs that society had been hammering into him for years. And then, crisis hit. His wife, Sarah, had an accident. The hospital bill came in at $1,000, money he just flat out didn't have. And in that one moment, he felt how fragile his whole world was. He couldn't afford a minor emergency. He even realized he wasn't strong enough to carry his own wife to the car. The feeling of helplessness was just crushing. Something had to change. So, in his desperation, Alexander started doing what we all do. He started buying online courses, devouring all this content promising a quick fix. But nothing was working. He was just consuming information. He wasn't actually learning. His wife, Sarah, she saw it so clearly. He was just trying to find a shortcut, a magic bullet that simply didn't exist. Then, while scrolling through this endless feed of empty promises, he stumbled on something completely different. It was just a simple video about an 800-year-old Japanese philosophy, and it was about to shatter everything he thought he knew about learning. The concept is called Shoshin, which means beginner's mind. It's the art of looking at the world without your ego, without pretending you already know everything. It's about being open, curious, and, not being afraid to look a little stupid. This, right here, is the key that unlocks the adult mind. This incredible quote from Zen master Shunryu Suzuki just nails it perfectly. The second you declare yourself an expert on something, your mind just closes. You stop seeing new possibilities. But when you're a beginner, the entire world is wide open. So if Shoshin is the mindset, then Shuhari is the path. It's this 3-step process for mastery. First, you're in the Shu phase. You just copy the master. No questions, no ego, you just absorb the pure form. Then comes Ha, where you start to break the rules, to adapt and experiment. And finally, you get to Ru, where you transcend. You don't even think about the rules anymore. They've become a natural part of who you are. And this whole process happens on the Do, which means the path. This is such a critical shift in thinking. Learning is not a race to some finish line called mastery. It's an infinite journey of growth. You never truly arrive. You are always on the path, always learning. Okay, I know. This all sounds great in theory, but how did Alexander actually use these ideas to pull himself out of that hole he was in? Let's break down how this philosophy turns into a real life plan of action. Well, it all started with a question from his new mentor. He asked, "Why do you want to change?" Not what, but why. This is Ikigai, your reason for being. And for Alexander, it wasn't just about making more money. It was about becoming a man his family could truly rely on. Someone he could respect when he looked in the mirror. That why became his North Star. Next up was the method, Kaizen, or continuous improvement. The goal wasn't some massive overnight transformation. It was way simpler. Just get 1% better every single day. Now, 1% is basically invisible. You don't feel it, you don't see it, and that's exactly why most people quit. But here's where the magic happens. That tiny, invisible 1%, it compounds. If you get 1% better every day for a whole year, you are not 365% better. You are nearly 37 times better. Think about that. It is just a staggering demonstration of the power of consistent, small efforts. So Alexander started simple. He picked 3 areas and went straight into that shoe phase. He just followed the rules. For his body, he followed a basic workout from a trainer, no questions asked. For his mind, he took a free online course in basic high school physics. And for his money, he used a simple budgeting system from a book, followed it to the letter. He completely became a true beginner again. Now, for that first month, it probably felt like nothing was changing. But Alexander just trusted the process. He kept putting in his 1%. And slowly but surely, that invisible progress started to become an undeniable reality. You look at his journey, and it's incredible. He starts at rock bottom after the accident. But within just 3 months, he's feeling stronger, more confident. By 9 months, that knowledge he's gaining sparks a business idea for custom car parts. A year after hitting his lowest point, he quits his job and starts his own company. And 2 years later, he's completely transformed. This is that final stage of Shuhari, discipline, learning, improvement. These were no longer things he had to force himself to do. They had just become his nature. He wasn't following the rules anymore because the rules were now living through him. And what's so fascinating is that this isn't just ancient philosophy. Modern neuroscience is actually proving that these concepts are fundamentally true about how our brains are wired to work. Dr. Carol Dweck's research at Stanford shows a clear link here. Shoshin, this beginner's mind, is exactly what she calls a growth mindset, the belief that your abilities can be developed. And the opposite, that expert mind, is a fixed mindset, the belief that your talents are just innate. The science shows that your belief in your ability to learn is the single biggest predictor of whether you actually will. It is not about your age, it's about your attitude. So, let's end this where we began, with a question for you. Alexander's transformation didn't happen because he found some secret shortcut. It happened because he was willing to destroy the certainties that were holding him captive. So I ask you, what certainties are imprisoning you, and what could you become if you were willing to let them go?